Okay, so hello, good morning, good afternoon to you, what have you. It is February 18th, 2023. Welcome to Philadelphia Walks PTSD. My name is Sharon Cole, or Sharon or Cole, whatever you want to refer to me as. No big deal. We're here on day 49 of a 365-day, one video each day, 365 days, asking for donations, big and small, short and tall. Whoever wants to contribute to someone whose life was literally stolen. I was harassed worse than Russell Crowe in the tobacco industry. The thing is, in the movies, it's all tied up in a neat little bow with background music and everything, and the climax and the denouement and all this stuff, with people around to actually help someone get justice. That doesn't actually happen in real life. I don't know who people are who wind up finding lawyers who will actually talk to them. I don't know who the people are who actually are able to gain the attention of certain agencies who are supposed to help people who are experiencing severe levels of harassment. I have no clue unless certain people are creatures of that world. It has been suggested that some people might actually be, and dare I say this because I don't want people to be offended, but if some people are truly of the natural world, are truly real, are truly one of God's children, maybe they don't really get noticed by people of the man-made law. I don't know. That's the best thing anyone can do. I have no idea how you get attention unless someone were to know and sniff out that there's enough money in it, because in a way, being a lawyer is about making money. It is part of a business. The bottom line is an issue. If you're just a regular itty-bitty person over here trying to figure out who's going to help me because I'm being slammed with so much harassment, so much crazy making, so much street theater, so many skits, so much messaging, so much crazy stuff, I don't know who you go to for help. Because if you were to turn to say, the normal response would be, I guess I could go to police and write a report about all the stuff that he's been, but then what? Then they would say, well, buy a camera. Maybe you can see who's actually leaving objects in front of your door that show that they can hear you or know your private business. It still doesn't result in a corrective action. Like, I don't know how to fix it. And on the flip side, I am someone who doesn't love the idea of the jail system. I am actually a liberal person. I want to know why people are doing what they're doing. And can there be a discussion, or, hey, leave me alone already? I actually don't like the idea of people being carted off to prison. I know there are people out there who will argue there are evil people, they just do what they do, there are really bad people. But I also know that crazy things happen. I also know people can be puppeted. So in a way, all those people who did crazy things in front of my apartment, or left objects, or played out skits, you might all be puppeted. Do you ever think of that? And brainwashed because you were actually willing to do that. And I have evidence. I went ahead and started collecting stuff just in case. I actually have physical evidence of certain things that have happened. I can't do all of it because I was trying to work at the same time. And even today, I'm doing this as a form of documentation. But all that aside, and I was made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment the fourth Monday of January 2011, as I say every time I come on here, in case anyone's new. And I try to keep it as upbeat as possible, but if I can get very angry, and justifiably so. But whatever it was, I was convinced it was the last night of my life. And some people might come in and say, well, maybe it was God's hand because you probably appreciate life a lot more. I do appreciate life a lot more. I don't think it was God's hand. There were too many very uncool, sadistic people at play here. I am willing to consider natural disasters, and some people have to, in their brains, say, okay, well, nobody can control the weather, and I can't believe a tornado actually ripped through Vermont. Like that would never happen. In fact, we had a tornado here a year and a half ago. Actually, it ran through New Jersey and destroyed some people's homes. There are conspiracy theorists to suggest otherwise, that weather could actually be heavily controlled. But when it gets to that level of weather and everything, you could say, well, there's nothing anyone could do about that. But in my case, there are actual people who might be part of religious sects, sects, cult-minded people, gang members, people who have joined in with certain gangs, rings, criminal rings. Because I had met certain people leading up to my experience, I kind of think Lord of the Rings is part of Philadelphia's little claim to fame here. I kind of think that, and they try to come in and try to take control, and I have to. So I do think it's an issue. Nobody wants me talking about the rings. Philadelphia has a serious problem here, and everybody's got your number if you're part of a ring. But anyway, or the numbers have been blocked. Now you got to figure out how to find me on the streets if you were hoping to play more games and stalk and do stupid things. But I'm walking around with a camera, so I hope that helps in deterring you from getting in trouble. I'm about prevention. Just stop before you get in trouble. Isn't that better than actually getting in trouble and having to pay the price and the dues of whatever the legal system brings up at the dirtiest, lowest levels of the matrix? There are people who get in trouble up here. It's totally different. Then there are people who get in trouble down here, and it's ugly. Nobody wants that. Yay. So what I wanted to come on here to talk about, because I was made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment, then the games commenced. And if God were, really quick, if God were to decide to intervene in Sharon's life, he wouldn't make it so that so many people he wouldn't throw tens of thousands of self-righteous people who thought they were all that in a bag of chips, imposing their beliefs upon me. The reverse should be true. God is now imposing me on you to show you what you did wrong. Can you imagine that I might have actually been a better pick? That God would love me better than a bunch of people who impose their views upon me? As if. God doesn't impose views. He gives you the option. You opt in, opt out. Your pick. If you come around marching around my apartment trying to act as if you are there serving God's purpose, you already failed and you already were snagged up by Satan. No blinking on that. No wink. As if. As if. So I'm going to get on to something else. In this video, I wanted to talk about a favorite author of my mom's, Nora Roberts, who also goes by J.D. Robb. And she has different types of books that she puts out. So she has an in-depth series of books, and she has these other random books. And some of her books were about, like, she would incorporate the usage of modern or conceptual modernized technology, like getting out of the shower and having a dryer blow you off immediately, like in a very, that would seem like a modernized wealthy home, or like the Jetsons or whatever. And my mom loved reading these books. She's like, I wish I had that, you know? So anyway, but what's interesting is, while I was in Gainesville, Florida, living with my mom and aunt, and before my mom and later my aunt would pass away, and also my dad passed away, in between there, he was with his wife of many years in another town in Florida. But anyway, while I was there, I kept looking for work and looking for work and looking for work and working here, working there, working everywhere. And one of the ideas that I came up with was, maybe I can teach yoga for the Veterans Hospital there, the VA hospital on Archer Road. And at the VA hospital, I was waiting for orientation and to talk to the woman who was in charge of the volunteer department, because I would have to go in like volunteer first. And then I thought, well, maybe I could parlay that into a job. But the pandemic would come along and kind of wipe all that out. But anyway, while I was there, I was waiting to be, asked to come into the office. And they said, oh, there's a bunch of books on this book dolly thing. Go ahead, take what you want. You can even take books home. Precariously placed in that pile or in the stacks there was a J.D. Robb or Nora Roberts book. And I was like, oh, I could take it home to my mom and she could have she's been waiting for a new book to come out from J.D. Robb. So maybe I could take this home. She could read it. The title I didn't love. So I was like, should I take it home or not? Because it's kind of, it kind of plays into the idea of people dying. It must have been part of the in-depth series, or the title was big enough of a deal to me that I really questioned it. But then I was like, well, she's been reading these books all along. I guess I'll take it home. I didn't know what else to do. I was waiting for, to be seen for a while there. So I went ahead and took it home. She's like, oh, I'll check into it. It's something to read while I'm, so forth and so on, sort of waiting for the new book to come out and all that. Anyway, later that year, my mom would actually pass away, July 29th of 2020, not of coronavirus. She fell in the middle of the night. I wound up getting up to go to the bathroom like very early one morning and realized she was on the ground, like calling. Not a pretty sight. Getting old is not fun at all. And it's quite sad for all those people who are used to dealing with people who age and everything else. So anyway, she wound up being in the hospital, then sent to a physical therapy, then back in the hospital, physical therapy, back to the hospital. So she kept being re-entered through the hospital, through the ER, and just coming through ER is traumatizing enough. So she was put through the mill big time with 1 million pinpricks on her finger because it was also a teaching hospital. I don't recommend teaching hospitals if you don't want to be pricked and people claiming that they need to keep testing. For all you holistic folks out there, please, no teaching hospitals. No offense to those who need to learn. Learn on your own kind. Thanks. So anyway, point being, she would ultimately come home to hospice care, and she was in hospice care for almost 20. It was I know it was more than 2 weeks. It was upwards of 20 days. After she passed away, I would eventually go, food shopping or whatever at the Publix. And of course, the pandemic was going on. I was also shopping for Shipt, so I was in stores a lot. And what I noticed was a book by J.D. Robb called Golden in Death, and it was just published fresh off the press. Golden in Death. And it stood out. It was like magnified. Like sometimes things don't seem magnified, or they don't seem, it's just like, oh, whatever. Somehow it really stood out. So J.D. Robb or Nora Roberts, Golden in Death. I decided to look up J.D. Robb and Nora Roberts just to kind of see what other books she published because she's incredibly prolific. And I believe her books wound up being adopted for movies and stuff like that, or adapted, for movies in Hollywood. Anyway, a lot of her works are depicted in movies, I believe, or they create I forget. Anyway, whatever. So she's been on the red carpet for various awards and stuff like that. I found that on her website. I also noticed that in her list, she published a book, or wrote a book that was published called The Witching Hour in 2011. And I have been on here before saying that the fourth Monday of 2011, at the wee hours of the morning, when everyone would normally be asleep, even the people who work in restaurants and come home, they're trying to fall asleep, and the people who haven't yet gotten up for early morning work haven't yet gotten up. So that's the witching hour. And I've even said during the witching hour, lo and behold, just found a book called The Witching Hour. And when did it come out? 2011. I also found something else. I'll go ahead and say it because I do worry about people's lives being woven into stories within the United States or elsewhere. And other people might be aware of it or believe in it. But we have wines and products, even at Whole Foods Market today, that might have someone's name saying, share in her story. Share in her story. I just thought of something else because my name is Sharon. But there's a wine named after that I think is new and has the same name of someone who's a relative in the family. I'm not supersonically close, but I'm close enough to this person. And also, when that person was born, that person's name was graffitied all over the city of Philadelphia. So somebody needs to fess up and tell us what they know or what they assume to be true. Because if other people are controlling people's lives, that is disgusting to me. People should feel free. Some people consider it an honor, I hear. So some people consider it an honor. Well, it could be that that person's life could turn out pretty okay. I hope so. It starts to get weird. It starts to get good versus evil, or is everything a story? Is everything a show on this planet Earth? What if your name crops up on a bank or on a product at Whole Foods? Or, I don't know, or part of someone's book series, and you are actually part of someone's Star Trek. You get it? So there's a Sharon's Bank down here that is where I wound up moving to in an emergency, but wound up being where I was tortured the fourth week of Monday, 2011. I was in an apartment that's south of Sharon's Bank. Sharon's Bank has a Star ATM. I want to know what it is, or what people think it is. And hence me asking for people to help me monetarily. I would like to have a normal life. I would work a normal job if I could find one. I just keep walking dogs here and there, and I'm draining my bank account from having worked for Shipt during the pandemic, which was easy for me to do because hardly anyone was around. It's a lot easier to shop in a store when no one's allowed in. And you can butt right in. Shipt shoppers, anyone who had to shop didn't have to wait in line. Shop for during the pandemic for business, they didn't have to wait in line, except for at the cash register at the end. So point being, what's going on? And I need to be able to keep a roof over my head. And I would do it all. I have had 66 plus jobs my entire life, trying to keep a roof over my head without burdening anyone else. So, I'd love to come on here and be totally hot and sexy or fun and cute and provide stuff that people would want to throw money at. But somebody gave me the icky story that I have to talk about, although conspiracy theorists would love it. But typically conspiracy theorists don't have a lot of money, right? The people who have money, they want to see football. They want to see basketball. They're going to pay $2,000 for a seat at the game. I don't have that kind of pull. Instead, I got shoved into a box. So I would like someone to give me back all the money that I paid to rent the apartment where I was terrorized for 8 years, plus pain and suffering, mental anguish, death threat money. Because I was threatened that first night and I felt like I was going to die. And messages keep coming up. Just like who died during the pandemic of pancreatic cancer. If you know to look up root words, pan means all in Greek. Alex Trebek, Your Life's in Jeopardy, and that was on a magazine cover. Your life's in jeopardy during the pandemic. That's sadistic. I don't know what magazine it was, but I was like, come on, people are actually in fear here. People are actually afraid for their lives. I know we have other people out there, and I totally get it. The holistic, the extreme raw vegan foodie group, they will say fear is false evidence appearing as real. Except that people do experience fear, and they need to sort of hopefully come away from it, but still. Who else passed away? Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think she had a name before Ruth. I think her name was a long name, but anyway, she was the first female Justice of the Supreme Court, something like that, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court or Associate to the Supreme Court Justice, what have you. And she was vital in helping women's rights move forward. What happens after she dies? And she died of pancreatic cancer also. All creation. So I don't know what to say, but we won't get into it. A whole bunch of things are coming to me about your life's in jeopardy if you blah, blah, blah. But anyway, we'll get into it. I'll have to figure that one out. That's a conspiracy thing that just popped up in my head. But point being, Roe versus Wade just occurred. the reversal of. And a lot of women feel like they are pushed back from progress of having, it's more the point of having a male who never has to be pregnant or carry a child. That's not the worst part. The worst part is, how do we raise a child? How do I raise a child if somebody else coerces me into sex or gets me drunk? Oh, women are supposed to know better. They're so perfect. How come men don't have to know better? I want to know why men don't have to know better than to ask a woman into the room to get her pregnant. It's put on the woman. And then it's like, oh, he's going to run off and not help. I don't know what to do. I don't have any money. Now I'm responsible. The woman often takes on a huge burden or responsibility for the child that she carries, and she feels more connected to this being because it actually grew within her. And all we need is someone saying, you don't have a right. It's more about having the right than it is about actual abortion. We'll do a real quickie here for Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, its main goal, unless someone were to believe they were death junkies, but as I understand it, the main goal depends on your type, I guess, how religious you are or what you say. But I actually did believe the president of Planned Parenthood, the last time I saw her, they push prevention. Please try not to get pregnant if you are not ready. It's more about not having a male tell a woman what to do. It's more about not feeling subjugated than it is about abortion. I don't want to talk about all that because I never wound up in that position. Most women do not want to go through a process that would kill off life per se. I would say most women don't. It's more about, please take these steps, stay as responsible as possible. Men can be a little bit pushy. I'm being very nice with my wording here. There are a lot of rapists out there, and they will go to great lengths to get you in the sheets. So, but got onto a long strand of a whole other thing here, but I'm seeking donors, big and small, short and tall. Please, I am begging you. I would like to have a life back. I want my life back. I have worked so hard and was run around the city ragged. Dare I use the word slaved out? People think, oh, dog walking is easy. Zoop. Nope. And out in the elements, rain, sleet, snow, and then some. Plus clients that might be something. Demanding, confusing, tricksters, harassers. You might wind up human trafficked through dog walking. You might wind up walking, riding your bike all over the city. Never once getting a break. No vacation pay. No personal days. No sick days. No bank holidays. It's a luxury kind of to work in an office 9 to 5 and have the paternal companies do everything for you. What's a paternal company? A paternal company is one that does everything for you. You might as well be a daughter or a son of the big man. They take out the taxes for you. They even have a bank right in house. You can get your hair done here. You can go to the gym here. We give you special lunches. We give you a million holidays. In fact, this is a long weekend. I think President's Day is Monday. Who has off? Who doesn't? You have maternity leave. We have a counselor on staff. We have this. We have that. Everything's here for you. You don't even have to leave. That's how much we will baby you. And there's people out here living in the real world. So anyway, we won't get on to it, but I genuinely would like to have my life back. And I genuinely know that what I suffered is and was so bad that if I had a good lawyer on this to put a dollar figure to the pain, suffering, mental anguish, death threats, harassment, whistleblower-like harassment, street theater, breach of privacy, possible hacking, and all the slaved out work I had to do to try to prove it, that is worth more than $40 million. More than your football players are going to get. Or, I'm sorry, it's worth more than what football players are going to get. But I think it's interesting that people can play on the field and kind of be half doing football and half doing intel work. While people from blue-collar jobs with no money are still willing to shell out hundreds of dollars to see a game of men scrimmage on the ground. Okay, with that said, have a great day and thank you so much. Please donate again. I know I'm a little bitchy woman here who has something to say, complaining, whining all the way. I should be grateful for being abused. Thank you for hurting me. Thank you for hurting me.